You are never going to be happy. You are never going to feel enough if the barometer for your worth, if the barometer for your happiness, if the barometer for you having any sense of self-love is perfection. Perfection is the number one killer of happiness, of fulfillment, of joy, of love. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bianca Thomas. I'm a licensed mental health counselor specializing in cognitive behavioral therapy, and I'm the co-founder and co-host of the Evolve Ventures business and podcast. As a mental health counselor, I've seen this time and time and time again. My clients will set these insane expectations for themselves, and I've done this in my own life too, where I've set insane expectations for myself, needing to be perfect, needing everything to be, pristine. And because it's an unrealistic expectation and it's not actually achievable, you feel terrible about yourself. So you're basically playing this losing game of never going to be good enough, never going to be smart enough, never going to be handsome enough, never going to be pretty enough, never going to feel anything enough because your expectations are here. Why do we do that? Why is it that we feel as though we have to be perfect? We have to do everything to the number one spot, the umph degree, whatever the term is that I'm botching right now. Why is it that we feel as though it has to be perfect or it's awful? There's a bunch of reasons why. Number one, if you are someone who is bound in shame, meaning if you are somebody who feels as though you're not enough, you're a bad person, you're defective in some way, or you're flawed, or you're incapable, those negative feelings and those negative emotions are so intense and so extreme that there's this belief that you're never going to be able to get out of it unless you're this radically different person, unless something drastic changes and everything is perfect. Only then will you be enough. Only then will you be capable. Only then will you be competent. And so to try to make up for this, how bad we think we are, how terrible we think we are, we swing the pendulum to the complete opposite side over here, hoping that maybe if I'm here, everything will be okay. The trap in that is that if you feel like you're the biggest piece of crap in the world and you're worthless and you're terrible, there is no way to swing all the way over here unless there's something seriously going wrong and unless you're having a significant mental health issue like mania or psychosis or delusions of grandeur. You can't swing from one end to the other. And so people try to basically gaslight themselves into believing that they can achieve this unrealistic goal because that's what's going to be what finally makes them enough. And when they can't get it, the negative feelings are even worse. The negative beliefs are even worse. The limiting ideas that we have about ourselves are even worse. And so you swing again. You're like, okay, no. This time I'm really going to do it. I'm going to do everything perfectly. I'm going to go to the gym 7 times a week. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But again, we swing the pendulum all the way over here. And because it's so far out of the realm of where we currently are, it is so far from where we currently are, we can't reach it. And those negative beliefs instill even further, and it just becomes this negative cycle where you're stuck and you have zero potential of actually ever being happy. One of the other biggest ones that I see time and again is the expectations that were put on us as children, or the expectations that we saw our caregivers and the people around us putting on themselves. I grew up in a family where perfection, especially appearance-wise, it was the number one important thing. You had to look as though you had no issues, no flaws. Everything was everything was pristine. And so I grew up believing that I'm never going to be enough unless I can meet this criteria. I'm not enough as I am. I'm not I'm not going to be loved. I'm not going to fit. I'm not going to belong if I'm who I am. So I have to follow the status quo, and I have to either become perfect or make it seem like I'm perfect in order to be loved and good enough. We typically end up being adults who put these unrealistic expectations on ourselves because these were the expectations that we believed we had to meet as children. These were the expectations that were put on us in order to belong to our tribe so we wouldn't get ostracized by the people that we love the most. And it's an unwinnable game. You can't perfection yourself out of low self-worth because it will never work. Believe me, I've tried it. There's someone in my life that I know that I consistently find myself comparing to. And in my mind, it's like, I'm not going to be good enough unless I'm as amazing as she is. If I'm not as extraordinary as her, if I'm not as perfect as her, if I'm not whatever, then I don't matter. And I'm not I'm not enough. And I find myself doing it all the time. And the way that I've been working through it is what I'll teach my clients how to do. If this is something that you're struggling with, if you are somebody who you know that you're trying to navigate through this, that perfectionism and needing to do everything, everything perfect in order to be enough, if this is you, you are definitely not alone. There are so many people who are struggling with this. There are so many people who are trying to navigate through this. And there are a lot of people who do eventually end up getting through this. But what you have to do to be able to start is understanding what are the expectations that I'm putting on myself and what makes me believe that that is the only criteria of my worth. Why do I have to be perfect in order to be enough? Why do I have to be the greatest thing on earth? Otherwise, I'm meaningless. There's black and white thinking in that. I'm either perfect or I'm nothing. I'm either number one or I'm zero. I understand that in sports and in there's certain areas where there is a clear winner and loser, but outside of those finite games, when it comes to life, the game doesn't work. That mindset doesn't work because there's no clear benchmark. There's no clear standard. We're all our own people. We're all on our own path. We all have our own values and beliefs and insights and desires and hopes and dreams and ways of doing things. But if we're all trying to measure up to this certain standard, it'll never work. You'll spend your whole life trying to chase this unrealistic thing, this fairy tale. But it's not a fairy tale. It ends up being a nightmare because you never actually end up living happily ever after, because perfection is never something that you'll actually be able to attain. There's no such thing as perfection. So number one, what are those unrealistic expectations that I'm expecting of myself? Number two, where did I learn that that was the only way that I was going to be enough? Who taught me this? Where did I learn this? Why did I really and sincerely believe this? And then number three, learning how to catch when those things happen and set more realistic goals and ideas for ourselves. You can't go from 0 to 100. If, let's say, the goal is the gym, you can't go from never working out to working out 7 days a week for 2 hours and developing, a bodybuilder's physique. It's just not possible. But what's the next step that you could do? And how do you build self-acceptance in that? How do you help yourself to understand, just because I'm not quote unquote perfect, it doesn't mean that what I'm doing doesn't matter. We think that perfection is going to fix how we feel about ourselves. We think that once I'm perfect, once I'm extraordinary, once I'm whatever, insert whatever that label is here, that my problems are going to go away. But the truth is, you're going to spend your whole life feeling empty and unhappy and miserable, trying to chase this unattainable measure that you'll never actually reach. So when you can understand what the benchmarks are that you're trying to reach that are unattainable, why you've been trying to, or where did you believe that that was what needed to happen in order for you to be good enough. And then number 3, catching when those are happening, catching the moments where you find yourself in these unrealistic ideas. Number 4, you really can start challenging it. What makes me think that this is really true? Why is it that this is the only thing that's going to make me worthwhile? What evidence do I have to support this? Is there anybody that I know that isn't perfect, but I love them anyways? Who is the quirkiest person that I know? They are so flawed, but that's why we love them. We get very stuck in this narrow mindset. We have blinders on, and those blinders, they ruin any chance of happiness that we could have. So if this is you, and if this is something that you're struggling with, number 1, please make sure you subscribe so that, we can keep growing this channel, and so that I can keep putting out, and so you can keep seeing the content that I'm going to be putting out, diving into these things a little bit more specifically. And number 2, if you need more one-on-one help with this, the link is in the description. Reach out. You can reach out to me through Instagram. You can reach out directly through the website, evolveventurestech.com. There's so many ways for you to get involved with Evolve and with me to be able to help you to overcome this, because it is possible to overcome. It's not easy. It takes time. It'll be a little challenging, but imagine being in a place in your life where you aren't plagued by this burden of perfectionism, where you can actually feel enough knowing this is who I am. And yes, I'm flawed. And yes, I have room to grow. And yes, there's these things about me that I can't change, but I love myself anyways. I believe in myself anyways. And I know that the things that I can change, I will. And that I've accepted the things that I can't. I'm on my own journey of that. I've helped hundreds of people in my therapy practice be able to do that. And I guarantee it'll be possible for you too.